The latest episode of The Bad Batch, The Harbinger, begins with a scene where we see Crosshair helping some of the locals on Pabu. The locals are very friendly with Crosshair, and I think it's a great little scene to show how Crosshair is slowly reintegrating himself with the community around him, and the people on Pabu are shown to be very accepting of him. Hunter discusses how they are still waiting to hear from Fennec Shand about the contact with information on M counts, while Omega is down on the beach with Badger. Omega enters a cave and notices a strange ship inside, which is when out of the shadows comes Asajj Ventress. Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair then find Omega and Ventress, and we find out that Ventress was Fennec's contact with the information on M counts. I think we all kind of assumed it would be Ventress, but obviously this just confirms it. Omega unintentionally reveals to Ventress that she has a high M count, which is why the Empire is hunting her. Ventress is skeptical that a clone could even have a high M count, but agrees to test Omega to determine whether or not she has any affinity with the Force. We then get kind of that classic Force training scene in Star Wars, with someone focusing on balancing something. Obviously, in this case, it's Ventress guiding Omega in what felt like maybe a beginning to a master and apprentice relationship, but that could be a bit of a reach. Meanwhile, Crosshair had been searching for information about Ventress and reveals to Hunter and Wrecker that she was a separatist in the Clone Wars. Ventress sends Omega away in the guise of another test, while Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair confront Ventress about her past. What follows is one of the best hand-to-hand fights I think we have ever seen in Star Wars animation. It looks fast and deliberate, but also very smooth and well executed. Truly an impressive feat of animation. Omega returns to find Ventress comfortably in charge of the fight, but quickly de-escalates the situation in her usual fashion. Omega also tells Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair that they should give Ventress a chance. They perhaps resentfully agree, and Omega and Ventress head out on a boat for the final test. Ventress displays her power in the Force after Omega claims she doesn't know what she's doing either, when a massive creature attacks them in the water. It's short, but we get another Monster of the Week type of segment here before Ventress calms the monster down and proves her Force abilities to Omega. Back in the cave where they first met Ventress, Omega asks about her M count, and Ventress tells her she does not have a high M count, despite what we were led to believe. Except of course when Omega walks away, Crosshair and Hunter accuse Ventress of lying about Omega's M count. Ventress essentially admits this, and it becomes a question of whether Omega should learn the truth and be taken away and trained by someone other than the members of the Bad Batch. Now I think this episode really does two things. First, it confirms that Omega does have a high amount of midichlorians and is therefore likely Force sensitive. This was something we kind of knew was the case, but in universe that information is now confirmed to the Bad Batch themselves. Ventress also makes it very clear that the Empire is hunting anyone with a high M count, which of course means they will still be hunting Omega, but since they will be hunting other Force sensitives as well, maybe there's a chance we see one of those people. Perhaps a Jedi that survived Order 66 and had very close ties with Ventress in the book Dark Disciple, which of course would be Quinlan Vos. And as far as I'm aware, we have had almost no indication or appearance of Quinlan Vos post Order 66, so we don't really know what his story looks like in this time period, with the perhaps exception of a mention of him working with the Hidden Path in the Kenobi show, but still that doesn't really tell us all that much. All I'm saying is maybe there ends up being a connection between the Bad Batch and Quinlan Vos in later episodes. The other thing that was kind of glossed over in this episode in regards to the book Dark Disciple was how Ventress is even alive. Now it's been a while since I read that book, but Ventress supposedly died after a fight with Count Dooku, and Quinlan Vos took her to Dathomir to put her to rest. What I will say about her supposedly being dead before and alive now is that this is Star Wars. Few people really stay dead forever, but considering how complex and powerful Night Sister magic can be, I have an easier time believing that she could have been resurrected on Dathomir, just like how Darth Maul was. I also think it's important to point out what one of the showrunners, Jennifer Corbett, had to say about her return, which was, We had several discussions about the book and how her story could continue, Corbett explains. How she survived will be revealed in future content, but for this story, we were thrilled to include her and explore her unique connection to and compassion for Omega. So she makes it very clear that we will see how she survived the events of Dark Disciple in a future story, perhaps in something like Tales of the Jedi. But anyway, the other important thing that came from this episode is that Ventress was able to find the Bad Batch on Pabu, and at the end she says that they are not as safe there as they may think. I think that's some clear foreshadowing that the next episode or two could take a very dark turn, with the Empire finding and attacking Pabu in the search for Omega. Obviously, we still have that mysterious CX clone to look out for, so I could see that all returning with an assault on Pabu when the Bad Batch are least expecting it. The other option is, like I mentioned earlier, with Omega finding out that she does in fact have a high amount of midichlorians and must make the decision of whether to stay with the Bad Batch, who has truly become her family, or perhaps go with someone like Ventress to train in the ways of the Force. Overall, a pretty enjoyable episode, although it felt short with wanting to know more about what happened to Ventress, but then again, it seems like we'll get that story another time. That's all I've got for this episode. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.